All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by all of our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks, Game Time, and PXG. It is Brian Hines back, as always, with Alex Barth to break down a 2017 Patriots loss to the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. Went to overtime. They almost pulled off some Drake Maye magic at the end there, but then Tennessee marches down the field, kicks field goal in overtime. Drake Maye throws an interception, and the Patriots fall to 2-7 on the year. And as much as I would always love to start these with Drake Maye magic and talk about the positives with Drake Maye, I want to start with the coaching staff today because we gave Gerard Mayo some credit last week. He pulled out the card of calling his team, soft performance, and they responded well. They won the game, and we said that they got to keep that going. They got to continue that momentum into this week. The coaching staff did not. It was a bad performance from the coaching staff. Penalties was one thing. They had 8 penalties, and Tennessee tried to give you that game. They had 10 penalties. They had plays like fumbling in overtime when they were marching right down the field. It felt like they were even too pass happy maybe at times, but it was a sloppy game from the coaching staff. There were a couple key points that have been going around online, that key talking points with the offensive line, the switch early in the game. They mess up another end of the first half situation, the 2-point conversion, which we weren't too upset with that decision. You could even throw the overtime choice of playing into the wind, another one that was kind of minor, but there were some questionable coaching decisions in this game, and we'll get into all of those a little bit more here, but I know you weren't pleased with the staff either from yesterday. So what was your kind of take about them?
Yeah, so my big take from this game is this was the worst coached game they've played this year. Maybe if you want to talk about the Jets week 3, but in-game management was certainly the worst, and the preparation didn't feel good either. That's not to say they've been great in other games. They've certainly had their moments elsewhere, but I think you can look at 3 or 4 major coaching points in this game that I don't want to say were avoidable, but like they failed. They failed in either decisions or preparation. And I mean, just to run through them real quick off the top of my head, lost the turnover battle to the worst turnover team in the NFL. That's partially on the coaching. Then you had switching the offensive line. That's 2. You had the end of the first half, and you had the 2-point thing. Those are 4 major inflection points that go on the coaching staff that are key reasons why they lost this game to varying degrees. Well, I think me and you feel similarly that the 2-point thing's maybe a little overblown, but just for the sake of it is being talked about. It is a discussion. We can get to that. I think it is a fair discussion. But yeah, this was, first and foremost on the coaching staff. This was not now look, when I say it's not about the roster not being good enough, the Titans roster blows. So this really wasn't a game where the Patriots were going to be outclassed, especially with all the injuries on Tennessee's side. But this game was about the coaching first and foremost.
Yep. Yeah. So you mentioned again those points. Let's kind of dive into those, and we can go in almost order here.
Yeah.
Number 1 was the offensive line.
Yeah.
They finally had some continuity last week, with Darian Lowe, Michael Jordan at left guard, Ben Brown at center, Mike Onwenu at right guard, and Trey Jacobs at right tackle. They went away from that to start this game. Layden Robinson is back from injury, so they put him at right guard, Mike Onwenu at right tackle. I'm guessing it was to maybe try and get a little bit more push in the run game on that right side, but to mess with the continuity after a game that you had your best pressure percentage against allowed was a puzzling decision, especially when Tennessee's best player, Jeffrey Simmons, who is a monster defensive tackle, is along the interior. And you put a rookie in Layden Robinson coming off an injury who's had issues in pass protection, basically one-on-one against him when your best lineman is Mike Onwenu, and he's been playing right guard, and we all like to say, and Scott Peters has even said, he's a guard. He's best at guard. So that decision was puzzling. It didn't last long. Layden Robinson played 21 snaps, and then they went back to Mike Onwenu and Trey Jacobs on the right side. Settled it down a little bit. Still not much in the run game, and we'll talk plenty about the run game, but puzzling decision out of the gate there, putting Layden Robinson in when Jeffrey Simmons is on the other side of the on the defensive line there.
I hated it. I mean, just point blank, I hated it. From the moment I saw the tweets that they have a different offensive line, how much have we talked about consistency? And I know, oh, you're the media. Who cares what you talk about? I'm getting this from Dante Scarnecchia. This was something Dante Scarnecchia talked about a ton. So if you want to say it's a non-starting talking point, you can take that up with the greatest offensive line coach in the history of this game. You had an offensive line that was starting to work together that was it an all-star cast? No, but for what it's been this year was playing relatively well. That includes your best lineman, who the offensive line coach, like you said, Brian, thank you for pointing that out, told us is best as a guard, that they wanted a guard as a guard long-term. And when Maye was asked after the game why they made the change, he deflected answering about the initial change and talked about why they made the change in game, saying, well, you know, Jeffrey Simmons was killing us and we wanted our best player on him. You knew Jeffrey Simmons was playing on the inside before the game. I know he knew, because I always pay attention to this, because this was the thing with Bill. I always made a point of noticing when Bill did the breakdown on Wednesday that Jerod Mayo's now doing, right, where he goes through the whole team. Who's the first player Bill mentions? I always made a point of recognizing that. Well, not just the game record, but like it's clearly like that's who's on top of his mind. The first player Jerod Mayo mentioned on Wednesday, Jeffrey Simmons. You knew he was going to be there in the middle being a problem. And not only did Layden Robinson struggle, and I think they like Layden Robinson too much. Maybe he'll be a good player down the road. He's not ready. He's not ready to be out there. He can't pass block. He's a good run blocker, and I'm with you. I think they wanted to jumpstart the run game. He can't. He's a liability pass blocking. He needs more work behind the scenes. Not only did that impact there, you saw Ben Brown and Michael Jordan have their worst games of the year. And I don't think now Jeffrey Simmons is a fantastic player, and he gets some credit here too, because I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. He gets credit here, absolutely. But I don't think it's unrelated that you change one spot on the interior and two other guys suddenly fall off. I don't think that's a coincidence. Those two things are related. So Layden Robinson should not be in the lineup next week, pending injury, but it looked like they got out of the game healthy. Like they have a group, they're building consistency, stick with it. If they think Layden Robinson's an answer down the road, figure that out down the road. I'll put on top of that, I don't need Layden Robinson to be an answer. Neither should they. And this is why that pick bothered me at the time. Again, Scott Peters told us they think Mike Onwenu is best as a guard. I don't know if there's some urgency to get him out to tackle so they don't have to add a tackle this offseason, because this also came, remember, in the same week. Well, this also came in the same week that Jerod Mayo told us that Vidarian Lowe could be an answer long-term. We talked about that on the last show. Vidarian Lowe has been solid this year, but he's been fine. Is that sustainable? And ideally, you want a little better than fine at such a high-impact position. Are they trying to set themselves up to be able to take a Travis Hunter, to be able to take a Ted McMillan? It's too early to do any of that. But, like, Mike Onwenu is not an answer at tackle. He's not. He's not. Layden Robinson's not the answer at guard. Keep Mike Onwenu on the inside. And of all the games to do it against Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat, who is really good in this game as well, major unforced error by the coaching staff.
Definitely agree. I do wonder, and I agree with you on the continuity. We've discussed that a lot the whole year, dating back to even training camp. I wonder if maybe they try something new at left guard, because it was Jordan's worst game, but he has been trending downwards. You know, I talked about this last week, that maybe they could be a switch there. And I mean, Ben Brown's their only center, and you don't want to get on him too much because it's a tough situation. You know, he got signed off a practice squad less than a month ago, but you know, his play hasn't been great either. And they're going against Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat, tough matchups. But
yeah,
those guys, like, the run game has been a big part, I think, those struggles there. So maybe they try Layden Robinson on the left side if they love him so much. We still haven't seen, you know, City So's
even still, sorry to cut you off. If this guy's struggling, the answer is not to move him to another position. He hasn't been practicing yet. I'd go to City So at that point. Or if Cole Strange, I think we're still probably a couple weeks away, but Cole Strange.
That's, I think your best five, if everyone's healthy, is like Vidarian Lowe at left tackle, City So at left guard, Cole Strange at center, Michael Onwenu at right tackle, and Trey Jacobs at right tackle, or Onwenu at right guard, Trey Jacobs at right tackle, or if Caden Wallace comes back. Although I think Trey Jacobs has been, solid next to Mike Onwenu, but
you can have a battle there. You can have a battle. I would just push back on Cole Strange at center. We don't know what he's going to look like at center. That's going to be a project. It was one bad game for Ben Brown. I'll let it ride with him a little bit more before I go there. I still think he's their best center right now. I reserve the right to change my mind, but he's one bad game against that right guy. No, they have Lacita Smith, but I'll let it ride with Ben Brown for now. One bad game against a guy like Jeffrey Simmons. Let me see if he can bounce back next week.
Yep. Yeah, I just wonder if, because they need to start running the football. And I wonder, so much of that does seem to be on the offensive line. Like, they've had negative yards before contact each of the last 4 weeks. And that coincides with both Drake taking over and Ben Brown playing center. So again, they're not going to change off Ben Brown right now. Maybe if they are confident when Cole Strange comes back there. But I do wonder if, for as much as we've talked about continuity, if there is a change they could make right now that could help just the run game, because they got to get something going there. Drake, the leading rusher yesterday, 95 yards on the 8 scrambles. The running backs had 12 carries for 15 total yards. They have one run of 10 plus yards in the last month. I know you have tons of stats about the rushing game too, but if there is a change on that offensive line, I would just wonder if they make that to try to get this run game going, because we'll definitely discuss Drake more, but it's all in his hands right now. They need a run game to try and help him a little bit, and maybe a switch up front on that offensive line could help that.
Yeah, Drake Maye can't be the entire run game, and he is right now. So I'll give you one of these stats, Brian. I've kind of been looking at these all day. Oh, where'd it go? Since Drake Maye, what the heck? There it is. Since Drake Maye took over as Patriots starting quarterback in week 6, he has 197 rushing yards. It's good 10.4 yards per carry. 197. Everybody else combined, 145, 1.9 yards per carry. He is their run game. They have zero run game without Drake Maye. Zero run game without him. And that's not sustainable. Just like we talked about at the beginning of the year when they were, running all over the Bengals, and we said, well, he had 120 yards, 118 of them came after contact. That's not sustainable. This is kind of the same thing where it looks good now. You can't do this for 17 games. You can't. I don't know that you can do it for 8. They got to find a way to run the football.
Yeah, he's been averaging 40, I think it was 45, just over 45, 46 dropbacks a game. Yesterday, they were down late, so that contributed to it, but they just had to ditch it. I think they called 15, 16 straight pass plays because they just can't run the football. So not sustainable. They got to get something going there. Most of that does look like it is on the offensive line. So maybe there's a switch, but the early switch, Layden Robinson for Mike Onwenu, head scratcher, not a great choice there. But the next coaching staff kind of puzzling decision. Have we ever seen them mess up a end of the first half situation? Because they got the ball. I didn't write down the time. It was 1:45 left to go in the first half. They went 14-yard completion to Kendrick Bourne, 9-yard completion to Kendrick Bourne, 2nd and 1. They run it with Jermichael Hasty stuffed, and now they sub in, a heavy personnel group on 3rd and 1, run it with Ramondre, stuff, punt back to the other team. They didn't waste the whole first half, and that was Bryce's shank too. So luckily they didn't give up any points there, but just another kind of botched first half, end of the first half situation there, which again is a reoccurring error repeater, whatever Drake Maye wants to call it. But they are making the mistakes that he says we can't make, and they keep doing it. I know you have your rant every week. We've heard it pretty much. So
do you have it memorized at this point? I don't know how much more I have to add. This is 6 times now. 6 times they've had a 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. They scored once because Drake Maye just went banana land. They killed the clock once, which I know people were annoyed they didn't push the ball. Holy crap, at this point, I'll just give them credit for executing a plan. Even if it's not the right plan, they actually executed a plan. And 4 times they've botched it. 4 of 6. 75% of the time they've botched with, that scenario. And they've gotten lucky. Like the Titans turned around and threw up all over themselves, so it didn't put any extra points up on the board for the opponent. That happened against Miami as well. So it should be more costly than it's been, but their inability to operate at the end of the first half is mind-blowing. Because they after the first game, like Gerard was asked about it, and he was like, yeah, it was bad. And I think even after the second one, he was like, yeah, we need to learn from these.
He
it.
called it didn't he call it like a carbon copy after the second time?
Yeah, no, he knew because it's the same this one was a little different because they started moving the ball. And that's what kills me. They were like on the right foot. 14 yards, Kendrick Bourne, intermediate out. 9 yards, Kendrick Bourne, intermediate out. He's getting to the sideline. He's stopping the clock. The Titans were giving that to you. Not to like take anything away from Maye or Bourne, but that's not exactly putting it in the keyhole. It's not exactly the crisp route that's getting him. He's just open. The Titans weren't covering that route. They were continually giving it to you. 2nd and 1 on a 2-minute drill. Take a freaking shot, man. You're going to have one, maybe two more plays to pick that up. You don't have the time to be hyper focused on that 1 yard. And by the way, you don't have the run game for it either. So this one was a little different, I guess, in how they botched it.
But they botched
it again. And it's now 4 times in 9 games. Plus, if you want to throw the win, if you want to say they should have pushed it against the Jets, yes, they didn't punt back. I think I said this on the Sports Hub today. I'll give them credit for 1.5 out of 6. What is that as a percentage? 1.5 out of 6. It's 25%. So quarter of the time they're getting that right. That is a key situation. You need to be getting, and I'm not saying they need to score a touchdown every time. You should not be punting the ball back, not with the significant amount of time left on the clock. And they've done that 4 or 6 times. Yep. You can't have it. There's no other way you can put it. You can't have it. And I'm sure we'll have this discussion again in a week or two. Because at this point, I just don't have faith in them to fix it because they haven't fixed it.
It's kind of insane how many just times they've been put in that opportunity to begin with. And then, now that they've been put in this opportunity, they keep botching the situation. So,
Ryan, I had to go back when I was writing about this postgame. I had to go back to my last 2 postgame columns and make sure I didn't copy myself and make sure I didn't plagiarize myself because I'm like, I've written about this so many times. I don't know like how many ways I can make this point differently because I don't want to be repetitive. But goodness, just keeps coming up.
You pick up 25 yards on 2 completions. And Drake Maye is the best thing you got going for you. I don't get why you take it out of his hands there. Like, you have to get
that 1 yard, I guess.
Yeah, if you imagine if you throw it twice, you're going to be able to pick up the first down and keep this thing moving. So, puzzling decision there. Wasted opportunity for potential points in a game that went to overtime, and you could have used some points. So they botched another one there. So before we get to kind of the last questionable coaching decision, I want to tell you guys about Prize Picks, where you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You just make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Barth and I submit our Patriots lineup every game day. We go through it at the end of Thursday's preview show. And you can also extend your lineups to the entire league with stars like Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Patrick Mahomes plays tonight, and more. He's taking on the Bucs tonight. So Baker Mayfield, I know he's down a couple of receivers, but you can put Baker Mayfield in your lineup. Pat Mahomes, Patriots legend Juju Smith-Schuster, if you want to put him in there. And speaking of Juju, PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup on PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, the last kind of coaching decision that's been debated since yesterday is the 2-point conversion at the end of the game. Drake has that spectacular play, 11.28 seconds, I believe it was, running all around the backfield. He hits Ramondre Stevenson in the end zone. Oh, what happened to Barth there? Did we lose him? We might have lost him. But Drake running around, he hit Stevenson to go down. Oh,
Still trying to bring my other one in. Hang on. They're doing construction outside my building. It's been screwing with the internet all day.
All right. But yeah, you score, you're down 1, they kick the extra point, take the game into overtime. Did you like that call, or would you have been like, hey, we're a 2-6 football team on the road. Let's just try to win this game here and now and go for the 2-point conversion?
Yeah, I don't want to say I like the decision. I think it's a toss up. So first of all, going for 2 there is not as common as everybody seems to think it is. I went back to 2015 when they moved the PAT back. There's been 6 instances in the regular season where a team scored a touchdown to go down 1 pending the PAT in the final 10 seconds of the game. 4 of those teams kicked the extra point. Now they went 1-3 in overtime, so maybe that supports going for 2. One team got the 2-point conversion, one team didn't. I don't know that that's informative because these are all very different situations. Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback in one game. I think Colt McCoy was the quarterback in one of them. Like, it's irrelevant, right? So that's just historical. Like, because I've seen people say, oh, of course you go for 2. In college, you do. Because college football's more driven on emotion and stuff like that. It would have been doing that off of impulse. I would have hated that. For the Patriots, and if you've listened to me, you know how you've heard me say this before. The decision to go, whether it's for a 2-point conversion, whether it's for a 4th down, or whatever, the decision to go is only as good as the play call. So if you're in a situation where you think it might benefit going for 2, but you don't like any of your 2-point plays, you don't go. Right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Why run the play that you don't think is going to be successful just because, well, we should, or even worse, well, the math tells us to do it, right? So you look at this Patriots team, they ran 3, prior to that game, they ran 3 snaps from the 2-yard line this season, only scored on 1 of them. From inside the 2, they'd scored on, I think, 4, they scored on 4 of 9 plays, so just under 50%. They couldn't pick up the short yardage earlier in the game. They were struggling to get it in from the 5. It took them 3 plays and some playground heroics by Drake Maye. I didn't feel, as they started going, I saw people saying, do you go for 2? I didn't feel particularly confident that they were going to get it if they did. And if they felt the same way, now that goes to another problem. You should go into every game with 3 2-point plays that you feel really good about. And they were 1 for 1 this year. They had the one against the Jets last week with just check down to Ramondre, and they had the one in London where Jalen Polk fell down. But I do understand it's not good, but I do understand if they didn't feel good about the ability to pick up the 2 yards. And then you bring in the factor of, was the offense just gassed, right? And they didn't have a timeout. I was fine with it. Now, if you want to say, well, the defense was gassed too, they're 2-6. What do they have to lose? Drake Maye is doing all this. Like, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with anybody who says they should have gone for 2. It's a real, like, football argument. And it's an agree to disagree thing because it comes down to philosophy. I don't think that there's a wrong decision there. I prefer kicking it, but I understand the argument for going for 2. That's why this one doesn't bother me a ton. What bothers me a ton is, again, failing to get points at the end of the first half that prevent that situation. Botching your offensive line. Not being able to stop the run in overtime, just like the Jags did. The Titans, body blow. 5.1 yards per carry on 8 runs in overtime. Only 1 went for less than 4 yards. They just carved them up on the ground in overtime. That happening, like defensive coach sending your unit out, that bothers me a lot more than kicking the extra point. I can't get fired up about it. I see the argument both ways. I would have kicked. I understand wanting to go for 2. People are saying, like, that decision cost them the game. I don't think it did. Because that's implying that they would have gotten it. And I really don't think they would have gotten it. So go to overtime, give yourself another chance, extend the game. That's the one I was fine with. And I'm sure in the comments, people will say, look at Barth making excuses for the coaches, ignoring the first 23 minutes of the show. But I'm okay with that decision. That didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, it didn't bother me too much either. I will say, when they were marching down the field, I was kind of thinking, like, if you do score, because I do like to be aggressive, especially when you're a bad football team, right? Like, you're 2-6, you're playing a 1-6 Titans team. Be aggressive. What do you have to lose? I was saying score. If you score, that would be the perfect time to call one of those design runs for Drake Maye, right? Like we saw the read option in the preseason home game, his first touchdown. AVP said this week, like we're going to bring that out not often, but maybe in important situations. I thought that would have been a great time to do that because they haven't been able to stop him on the ground pretty much all day, and that's put the ball in in the hands of your best player. But you watch that drive, an 11-play drive, a 4th down conversion, and then the last play where he's running all around, like they were gassed. And he said that the emotions, he was just trying to catch his breath. I get just saying, okay, let's kick the extra point, which they almost missed, which that would have been another issue. But and like let's trust the defense because it is Mason Rudolph. You would have liked a little better performance in that overtime period. But yeah, it was shades of London then where they're just running the ball right down your throat. So wasn't too fired up about that one way or another. But as you said, I definitely get the argument for it. And, again, you're a 2-6 team, like maybe be aggressive, but get the extra point and go to overtime. So those were the kind of the 3 big coaching decisions. I don't know. Did you care at all about the wind factor and overtime playing into the wind?
I mean, you should be keeping track of the wind when you're deciding which way to kick. Pick up some grass and throw it. Like it made it sound like they didn't consider that and they maybe missed it. So it was a little vague. The answer was he saying that the wind changed and they adjusted, or did he miss it? I mean, that's a bad miss if they missed it. I didn't really understand that answer. They shouldn't have been going shouldn't have been going into the wind in overtime. That is another one that bugs me more than 2 point. Don't be going into the wind in overtime, whether it was intentional, whether they missed it. I guess missing it is technically worse, but don't go into the wind in overtime one way or the other.
Yep. And I think Drake kind of downplayed it today. He was on the radio a couple hours ago because he said after the game, I threw it into the wind and I got to put more on it. He kind of downplayed it today and just said, he said that to make himself feel better. But you missed the field goal going that same direction earlier in the game in the first quarter. And, it's just making things harder on yourself if you're going into the wind, in overtime. You might need those points. So it was kind of a weird answer that Mayo said this morning. He just said the wind changed from the beginning to the end of the game. I don't know, as you said, when he's judging that off of, but
right,
something you got to keep track of because it can come back to haunt you and cost you there. So that's the coaching staff. Again, some big kind of errors and mess ups in this one. But let's get into a little bit more of Drake Maye. They rode the rookie roller coaster with him, 95 rushing yards that we talked about, led the team that was the most scramble yards of any quarterback in a game this season. And he also threw 206 yards, the game tying touchdown there at the end of regulation, where again, he's running all around. But then he has 2 interceptions, one to end the game. He has got a strip sack late in the fourth quarter that gives Tennessee the lead. So again, that roller coaster, it's tough because he's doing everything. He is the offense. It was a one-man show, but what'd you take from his performance in Tennessee yesterday?
Yeah, his game right now screams to me just an internal dialogue of, I guess I'll have to do it myself. And I don't blame him. Like, I understand why he thinks that. Wide receivers are dropping balls left and right. Can't get a clean pocket. If you look at it, he had 301 total yards. The Patriots, when you factor in sacks, had 280. So he actually was responsible for more yards than the Patriots went on the books for total, which is a great way to sum up his game. Now, that's not to say he was great. I don't know that I'm going to call any quarterback that turned the ball over 3 times great, especially one of those is just a blown read, rookie mistake. Can't have that. The fumble, he was a little careless with the ball back there in the pocket. JaMychal Hasty can probably do a better job jumping on that, but shouldn't have gotten it knocked out. And then the last one, everything he said after the game, 100%. Like, I understand what he saw, but given how difficult that throw is, you have JaMychal Hasty in the flat for 7 yards, plenty of time left to get down the field. Live another down there, right? And I know we all got excited. We thought it was the Tom Brady in Miami moment. That popped into my head as that ball was in the air, but he's not Tom Brady. So it's that same thing where like overall you like what you see because he's a guy they can build around. And he's giving them every reason to get aggressive this offseason and building around him, which is good. But that help's not coming for a while. And he's trying to do too much right now. And it's causing him to be careless with the football and make bad decisions. And if this becomes a habit, his ceiling gets significantly capped. So they need to find ways to take a little bit off of his plate right now and then get the help in the offseason. The turnovers have to come down. He's given the ball away 4 times in essentially 3 games. That's not sustainable. Like the way that plus the rushing, the way he's playing right now is not sustainable. The flashes are there and there's plenty to build around, but he's got to be more careful with the football. And I think some of that is going to come with just getting more talent on the offense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a playmaker, right? He's not Mac Jones, game manager. So that's part of the gig when you're, a playmaker. You're going to take some risk and stuff like that. And he is only 22 and he is shouldering the load. So that stuff's going to come. But the highs and the ability to kind of elevate the offense right now is really optimistic. It does. We got to talk. Devon Gottschall said he's Josh Allen 2.0. It is a little similar, like that the turnovers early in their career. Like I think they were both at like 5%, right over 5% turnover worthy plays in their rookie year. And then Allen was able to get that down a little bit, with different play callers, some help around him at the receiver position. But I think definitely, and Gottschall even said, like, Drake is ahead of where Josh Allen was as a rookie. Like his rookie year was a disaster.
Well, yeah, it's not 4 interceptions every single game.
Yeah, like I think you're seeing the in structure stuff when it's there and it's presentable. If there's protection and there's a throw to be made, like Drake is making that, it's mostly accurate. I don't think there was as many sprays this week.
No,
he was mostly accurate, so that was a positive. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of flashes, a lot of things to be optimistic about, but he is doing it all. And when he has to do that at this point of his career, there's going to be kind of those ups and downs, and you're seeing that. So you just hope he learns from it, kind of gets that out of his system. As you said, better players around him, which hopefully will come in the future, should help that. Gottschall even said players are going to want to start coming to play here with him, with a guy like that. So hopefully that helps. But I think it's pretty encouraging still what you saw yesterday and what the ability is of him at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else on Drake, just in general? But
I feel like we're going to get to a broken record with him because I don't think the turnovers are going to slow down this year, unfortunately. And you're going to still see some spectacular plays. I mean, he made like 3 throws on the run yesterday that were unfreaking believable. And it's just going to be, finding that balance.
The one to Pop, the little rollout to his right, lofted it over like 4 or 5 defenders. That was very pretty. I will say you're starting to see.
It is. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go.
It is Drake Maye adjacent. Do you feel any differently? What?
Josh Allen adjacent?
No, Drake Maye adjacent. Like this question is Drake Maye adjacent.
Oh, okay.
Do you feel any differently about what the Patriots' top priority should be in the draft?
Not really. Are you tackle or wide receiver? Are you like picking one of those?
Well. So I still, end of the day, want to see him take the tackle. I still think that's the best move. I'm starting to kind of see the argument for Tet McMillan or Travis Hunter. I still don't think it's the right pick, but how do I want to phrase it? Because I'm going to have a bunch of people say, "Oh, you changed your mind." Like, no, still take a tackle. I think that a wide receiver with the way Drake Maye's playing could maybe have more of an impact than I initially thought. I still think tackle is going to have the most impact. I still think the pick should be left tackle. You want to talk to me about Ariante Aircy? Maybe there's another guy in the mix and it's not Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks. Like, we can totally talk about that. But yeah, it's a good point. It's like a little guilty pleasure. I know it's probably not the best thing, and at the end of the day, I don't think I'm going to do it. But
appetizing.
It's getting. Let me. All right. Here's how I really want. I still think they should take a tackle. It's getting harder and harder to say no to the receiver, basically, is where I'm at. But I'll just double down, go get the guy in free agency or via trade. Like, I'm doubling down on DK Metcalf, man. Like, if you put DK Metcalf in this offense with that guy, look the fuck out.
Especially just with Tet, like the skill set, it would be a perfect match there. But so much of
Metcalf
that,
too.
yeah, exactly. So maybe are you even warming
I'm
up to
saying,
maybe
just don't welcome me. Hey, don't welcome me to wide receiver group. I still tackle. End of the day, tackle. It should be a tackle. Just getting a little harder to say no to the receiver. It's fun to picture. I'm having more fun.
you want to
with the
make
thought than I thought
people really mad? Are you maybe warming up to Edge in the
No.
first round? No, you're not there yet.
Veteran. I wouldn't hate if they went out and traded for Chase Young tomorrow, especially seeing what Baron Browning went for. I wouldn't hate that.
Gotcha.
But it's also too, like, this edge class is legit. And you're going to get a really good player at the top of the second round. You're going to get a potential impact player. It's not true at tackle. I don't think it's going to be true at receiver. Like, the caliber of player that will be there at 34, 35, 36, the edge defender that will be there, the pass rusher that will be there is a much better player relative to his position than the receiver or tackle that will be there at that point. So, no, I'm not going there with their pass rushers. Not that far.
I was just like, it's November, so there's a long way to go with these things. But the worst thing you can do is overdraft at a position and get a guy who's not worth it. So if maybe these tackles don't prove worthy of a top 10 pick, or we've talked about Tet being a little inconsistent. If you study him a little bit more and you see that, and you're not sold on a top 10 pick, and the best edge players sitting there, maybe after you trade down a few spots, like that's when I would say maybe that becomes into a consideration.
The trade down Tet McMillan, Ariante Aircy package does look pretty good right now.
That would be a dream. That would be a dream. So, all right, yeah, that's a little draft talk. But Drake Maye, the only other thing I'll say on Drake is Tennessee played pretty much all zone coverage, and that was something we talked about. Like, he took off that first or second play of scrimmage, that long run when they were in man, and then they said, scratch that. We played over 85% zone coverage. So you're starting to see how defenses kind of will start to guard him a little bit differently with the threat of his legs. So. But optimistic, encouraging stuff for the most part. So before I want to get to a few other rookies on the offensive side of the ball, but very quickly before we do that, game time. We all love going to football games in football season. It's also hockey season, basketball season in full force. Celtics looking good. So we get all of our tickets on the Game Time app, and Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Patriots are back on the road this weekend. They're going to Chicago. If you are in the area and you want to go to Soldier Field, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, it's driving the price up this weekend. Cheapest price on the Game Time app is $205 to get into Soldier Field to see the battle of the top picks. Or Rams are coming to Gillette the weekend after that, $85 right now on the Game Time app. And of course, you can find their lowest price guaranteed, seat views, all-in pricing, and Game Time Picks, which makes it even easier to save on your sports, concerts, comedy, theater, or any other tickets you are looking for. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, a few other rookies there on the offense side of the ball. I want to talk about Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, the receivers. Polk comes back from the concussion he missed last week. He only played 9 snaps, gets called for 2 penalties. Gerard Mayo said this morning, they weren't great calls. He didn't love the hold. He kind of blamed the illegal shift on the quarterbacks, making sure everyone's got to get set. But he put himself in that position, and then he didn't get. He got 1 target. It was the interception. Wasn't really Polk's fault, but no catches, 2 penalties. Not a great showing from Polk. And then Baker, he only played 4 snaps. He ran 2 routes. He got open on both routes. Didn't get the ball because of pass protection issues. So would like to see more Javon Baker, and it's tough right now to see a role for Jalen Polk in the offense with his play and what he's showing right now.
Yeah, I think I've seen enough. And I know I was saying last week, you got to get him back on the field. You got to let him work through it. He's lost right now just with the penalties and all that. And Javon Baker's a little different. He actually got open. I think he had, 5 offensive snaps. Did get open on one of them. Drake Maye didn't have enough time to get him the ball. But
both of them he got open.
Yeah, he did. So I keep throwing him out there a little bit. It's not good with Jalen Polk right now. It's just not good. And you got to sit him down and let him figure it out in practice because it's not fair to everybody else. You're at the point where the guy's hurting the offense every time he's on the field. And I've talked about this before. Ideally, what's best for Drake Maye and what's best for Jalen Polk are the same thing because you want to develop both players. That's not the case right now. It's not. And you got to default to what's best for Drake Maye. He's a quarterback.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. I don't want to put the bus label on him because it's 7 or 8 games into his rookie year there, but it hasn't been an encouraging start.
I mean,
so
I hate to do this generally when it comes to wide receivers.
If it starts this way, it continues this way.
Generally, first-year production is indicative of what the career is going to be. That's been the trend the last 5 or 6 years. You have a couple outliers here and there, but generally, you start strong, you're going to be a good player. You don't start strong, you're not. You don't have many guys that get it going their second, third, fourth year. You also don't have many guys that have a great rookie year and fall off. It's generally pretty indicative. So, for a guy like Javon Baker, it's a little different because he just hasn't played, so we don't really know.
He's like Booty last year.
Yeah, Kayshon Boutte doesn't. He played 1 game. We never saw really what he was going to be. So that's different. I'm talking about when guys play as rookies. Generally, the first year is indicative of what kind of player they're going to be, and it's not great for Jalen Polk right now.
Yep. Yeah. Someone asked Baker was open. He ran 2 routes. They dialed up this deep play action shot to him, and he ran a nice route. You saw the explosiveness that the coaches are talking about. Got open, but there was a pass rusher in Drake Maye's face. It was a longer developing play, so he couldn't get it out to him. Right. And then his second route was just kind of like one of those backside digs that you've seen Maye throw a lot, and he got open again, but I think that was when Layden Robinson was still in, and he got beat, so there was a guy in Drake's face again, so he couldn't get him the ball. So 2 routes, and he gets open twice. I would like to see more Javon Baker, and I imagine we might start to see more of him too, more than 4 snaps, so encouraging in limited action. So and someone says I'll be calling for another Taekwon breakout next year. I was not in that
Brian. Why are you calling for all these Taekwon breakouts?
I think you got Alex's Ron co-host on this one. That should be
this is not Catch 22's on Thursday.
That should be an Evan question. I think our stance was pretty clear about Taekwon this year. But anything else on offense? I mean, Hunter Henry, Mr. Reliable, as always. I would like to see more Antonio Gibson. He only played 8 or 9 snaps, and that goes back to, we haven't talked about running Mondre into the ground a lot like we did earlier in the season, but Gibson is an explosive player. I can't imagine that would hurt you more. I'd like to see more of him, but anything else in your notes on the offensive side of the ball before we wrap that up and go to the defense?
Hunter Henry, you can set your clock to him. Mr. Reliable.
Yep.
Good on him.
Good player. Good player. But
yeah.
Defense, just more of the same. Struggles at the line of scrimmage in the run game, the run fits, shedding blocks. You saw we talked about it a little bit earlier there. It felt like the London game again, where they're just running the ball right at you in overtime, and you can't stop it. They had issues with the outside run game. Again, like they did against the Jets. Tony Pollard averaged nearly 5 yards a carry, running to the outside edges, broke a couple long ones. He had that 30-yard explosive toss early in the game. So just more of the same issues there. Struggle to get off the field on third downs too. It kind of feels like the end of the half situation on the offensive side. It's just the same things over and over, kind of plaguing the defense here. And you saw it again against Tennessee.
Yeah, it's tough to talk about without just being like, well, you remember we talked about this. You remember we talked about that. if you can't stop the run, nothing else is going to matter. If a team can run for 5 yards per carry on you, there's not a ton of incentive for them to get creative if they can just line up and push you back. And that's happening right now. Look, credit to Jelani Tavai. I actually thought he had a good game. He was better. Second week in a row, he's kind of improved. So that's encouraging, but it's going to take more than him turning it around to fix this thing. Again, in overtime, 5.1 yards per carry on the ground. They, just like the Jaguars did, they saw a chance to close out the game and went body blow, body blow, body blow. Can't have it. Just can't have it.
Yep. Yeah, watching it back, Tavai, he gave up a couple plays, especially one explosive play action, but you saw much more splash plays from him. Like he had the early tackle for loss, the interception on the goal line, obviously on the tip drill. He was really good as a pass rusher. I think PFF had him as like a 60% win rate.
Yeah, they also had Daniel Aquali as the highest graded player for the Patriots in this game. So they might have gotten the wrong tape.
That was interesting. Okay. That's they're not loading right now, so I can't see that. But yeah.
I'd want to keep that off the internet too.
Yeah, it's definitely better than Tavai, even though he's still, there's a player too. You'd like him to make that he doesn't. Anthony Jennings, another monster role and kind of more production. He's not going to be, a top tier pass rusher, but he led the team with 4 pressures, 5 run stops too. So kind of a typical game for Anthony Jennings. I will say, someone asked in the chat here, I just lost it, but what do you think of Christian Gonzalez's performance right here? Someone said that he had a bad game. He had 1 pass breakup, which was beautiful coverage, but Ridley had 5 catches on him. It was actually, I think Next Gen finished it with 3 catches for 51 yards on Gonzalez. So some good, but some bad, especially in overtime. He gave up 1 reception kind of downfield. But what do you think of Gonzo's game?
He was fine. They were running these weird zone coverages, just kind of passing guys off to the middle of the field, and they didn't have anybody in the middle. I don't know what that was, but it wasn't his best game. I wouldn't say he was dominant. If he can give you that week in and week out, he's number 1 corner. I don't have too much of a problem with it. It wasn't his best game, but like he was so good against Adams last week. It wasn't that. But I thought he played competitive against a good receiver. He was fine. I wouldn't call him an up. I wouldn't call him a down. He's sort of there.
Yeah, not his best game, but
the bigger Jonathan Jones was, they were picking on Jonathan Jones quite a bit. And I wonder if, the Patriots are getting really bad safety play right now, especially free safety. I wonder if you start playing Jonathan Jones at free safety, because he still has the speed and the athleticism and the instincts. The coverage skills just aren't there like they used to be. Maybe he's dealing with an injury or something. You put him at free safety, so you get a body there, a veteran there, and then maybe it's more opportunities for Alex Austin, who's going to come off IR soon. Marco Wilson struggled in this game. I wouldn't give him more reps. So maybe it's more opportunities for Alex Austin. Maybe Marcellus Dial starts playing a little bit on defense, something like that.
Yeah, they missed Kyle Duggar definitely on the back end. Del Pettis had some moments in the run game. I think Hawkins, the first play of overtime or the first completion of overtime was kind of on Jalen Hawkins. So they definitely missed Duggar.
Was it Hawkins or I think it was Hawkins, right? I'm surprised they didn't call a penalty on that one where he came over the top and hit Ridley. Now they shouldn't have. I'm glad they picked up the flag, but in the modern NFL, that's usually a penalty. That felt like that could have been bad and it was avoidable.
That's 2 weeks in a row on him too. Remember he had the one last week, like down the right sideline near the goal line where he kind of hit a guy late.
Yeah.
So,
and I get, like, he's trying to set the tone. I get it, but this team doesn't have that kind of margin for error.
Yep. All right. Any other notes to wrap up the defense? Oh, I can't say I wrote down Drake Maye this morning said they might be or getting close to Christian Barmore, maybe returning. He was talking to the practice field in sense of the practice field, getting back in practice. So maybe we're getting close to Barmore, which make sure he's like 150% healthy. We don't need to rush him back here, but he would obviously be a big boost to the defense and the defensive line and helping some of these issues in the run game and rushing the passer. But that was your Christian Barmore update. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on his potential?
I wouldn't rush him back. Like, if he can play great, they could obviously use him, but you're 2-7. That's a very important player. I wouldn't push it with him. Maybe like, it might be one thing for like his mental health, just to let him get back on the field and get involved. I could see that being great for him. And even maybe, playing a game or two at the end of the season, just so he's not going into next year totally cold. I get that, but I wouldn't no need to rush, no need to push it. If he can't get back on the field, he can't get back on the field. I wonder
It's
if
not.
they do something like, remember Cameron McGrone? They drafted him off a torn ACL, and he wasn't going to play that year, but they did designate him to return late in the year so he could take part in 3 weeks of practice, like knowing full well that he wasn't going to play. It was just to get him out there. I wonder if maybe they do something similar for Christian Barmore, where he goes back out there, so he's on the field, but like he's just not going to play.
Yeah.
And I'll throw this into Ziminez tore his ACL. I don't think he's come back.
He's done. Yep. Yeah, definitely no reason to rush him back, especially on a 2-7 football team here. But Cam McGroon's a good callback. I thought he was going to be awesome. I loved Cam McGroon in the draft, but
I like the philosophy, but I understood it was a risk with the pick.
Yeah, definitely. Worth the risk. What was that? A 5th, 6th round pick? It was worth the risk for a player with that type of athleticism, even though there was some injury risk, as you saw. But
yeah,
that is the defense. Very quickly, special teams. It was inevitable that Marcus Jones would pop a big return. He did 2, a 40+ one earlier, and then a 20+ yard punt return to help set up that game tying drive to end regulation. So he's been awesome. He's just an elite punt returner. There's not much more to say about that. Although I was surprised Tennessee kicked to him at the end there. You can see why they're
as bad a coaching decision as there was in that game. And
you can see why they're a historically bad special teams unit there. So Marcus Jones is a game changer in that area. Bryce Behringer, not his best performance. That 15-yard punt, a shank right off the foot. You could see he knew it immediately. He had another one later. It wasn't a shank, but he didn't hit it great, but he ended up getting a nice roll. So it was still a 45-yarder, but not Bryce's best performance. And then Joey Slye, you don't want to get on him too much. It was a 56-yarder that he missed, but you missed a field goal in a game you lost by 3 points. And he's got 3 misses now. One was blocked, but they all came in 1-score losses. So those have all proved costly. Again, it was a long kick, but he's got a big leg. That's why he's in here. I mean, the training camp competition, like he was way more consistent from 50+ yards. So you'd like to see him make that again, especially in a game that went to overtime that you lost by 3 points.
Yeah. I mean, he's here because of the big leg. Like that's why he's here. And that cost me. I think there's something like he's only missed 3 kicks this year, but they've all come in 1-score games.
Yeah.
And another one where I talked earlier about turnover advantage. I didn't talk as much about it as I wanted to, but basically you can read about it on 985sports.com. Titans came in, most giveaways, fewest takeaways, worst turnover margin. Like the Patriots had a chance to definitively win the turnover battle. That would have helped them out. They didn't. The one other spot they should have had a definitive advantage is on special teams. Titans had, we talked about this on Thursday, Brian, historically bad special teams unit. With Marcus Jones returns, maybe they had a advantage. It was hardly definitive. They didn't win the battle on special teams by nearly enough. That's on Joey Slye. That's on Bryce Behringer primarily. Whereas in past weeks, we've talked more about the coverage players. Slye misses a kick and almost missed that extra point at the end of the game. Behringer shanks one punt. He had another one that was like a half shank. They both left opportunities on the table.
Yep. All right. So any last thoughts on that game? Just anything in general that we missed or didn't get to?
No, I think that's it.
All right. I do want to do.
I sort of talked about it earlier. Jeffrey Simmons, criminally underrated player.
Yeah,
criminally underrated player. Give that. I know he's been on bad Titans teams for a long time, and the position he plays isn't sexy. Give that man his flowers. He can freaking play.
Yep.
Let me ask you, would Jeffrey Simmons be the best player on the Patriots right now?
Oof. Probably.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just, is he better than Christian Gonzalez or Drake Maye?
Well, Drake Maye is kind of his own thing because it's been 4 games. But yeah. He'd be the most impactful player on their defense. And they have a guy like that in Barmore. So that's not, but you get like, I never hear when we talk about the great defense players in this league, nobody ever talks about Jeffrey Simmons. I've been a fan of his for years. Mention him next time. Good player.
Yep. That's the downside of being stuck in Tennessee. Did you get a little upset watching his co-partner there, Tavondre Sweat, just dominate the run game? That was a guy we talked a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I said it in the spring, like he never made sense for the Patriots. That was a luxury pick that they didn't have the luxury to make. But those two together, Simmons is 28, so they still have like 3 years together. that's going to be good luck. Anything up the middle against the Titans. That's a hell of a pairing. And I like that move. Tennessee, it's funny that the Titans are as bad as they are. I actually think they did a good job of building that roster. Look, injuries haven't helped, but Tony Pollard, good addition. Calvin Ridley, good addition.
Oh, you can't
On
pivot
defense,
now. You were calling them old all off
L'Jarius
season.
Sneed. You know what? Fair. Okay, fair. But, well, these aren't old players that I'm naming. Like, how many of the old guys worked out? DeAndre Hopkins traded. Jamal Adams asked for his release so he could go to a contender, and now nobody will sign him, which, way to go. No, all right. So I didn't like all their moves. That's fair. Good job calling me out. But I think they built like a decent core.
They got good players.
Yeah, the quarterback just blows. Yeah. And they've got to hope that they can, keep this thing together mostly this offseason. And then they are a team that should be aggressive in moving up in the draft and trying to get, one of those top quarterbacks. Because you drop Cam Ward into that thing, you probably have a playoff team. Assuming, again, they're like, the injuries are, forget the guys that are on the injury report. They have a number of guys on IR too. Like, they're banged up to all hell. But they have some pieces. They have some pieces. I don't know that they're a quarterback away, but they're close.
Yeah. Even their offensive line, like J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski, they signed Lloyd Cushenberry, who got hurt, of course, yesterday.
They were missing Dylan Radunes, who's been starting for them and playing well.
We're going to be talking about J.C. Latham probably this offseason because he's a guy who flipped from the right side to the left side and has done it fairly successful. I know it's tough, but they have some good players down there in Tennessee, but they need the quarterback. So I do want to wrap up just with some quick trade deadline updates because that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. We are less than 24 hours away from the trade deadline. Very quickly before we get into that, we also, of course, need to talk about PXG. The weather is looking nice. We have a couple days in the 70s. This weekend is looking nice in the low 60s. So make sure you get out on the golf course. And if you are looking to improve your golf game, hit the ball straighter, farther, not having to worry about hitting everything pure to make it a good shot, head over to PXG. Barth and I went over for a fitting at the PXG in Framingham, and we upgraded the clubs in our bag immediately. We both got a new set of Black Ops irons. You get to go into the simulator, hit 50, 60 balls, all the different clubs, the shafts, the heads, different grips, and you get to see all your data, live action on the TrackMan data on the simulator, your ball speeds, your distances. It can help fix if you're spraying the ball. I always have a slice, so they help fix my slice a little bit and added almost 40 yards a distance onto my shot, which has made a huge difference out there on the course. And if you are looking to upgrade your bag, make sure you do so with PXG clubs and take your game to a whole new level. For a limited time, you can save $10 per club if you head over to pxg.com and use code CLNS. That's pxg.com, code CLNS to save $10 per club on your order. pxg.com, code CLNS. Great Christmas gift. Holidays coming around the corner. If anyone needs,
you can still golf this time of year. So apparently,
I know
it's supposed to be 80 on Wednesday.
That's too hot. It's too dark outside right now, and 80 in November is too dark. But
twilight, you got to get out after lunch.
Exactly. Yeah, got to get out early. So, just wrap up very quickly. A couple trade deadline notes. Kyle Duggar's name was floated out there over the weekend. We heard teams. This is a funny one. Teams calling about Christian Gonzalez. They quickly got told to go away, and I think the word was amusing on those calls. And then we saw Tyquan Thornton and KJ Osborne, the two names that have been out there the most. They were inactive yesterday. Mike Reese had in his column that they might just outright release KJ Osborne if they can't find a trade partner. So are you expecting anything tomorrow? What do you think on the Kyle Duggar, his name getting added into those talks? I would be stunned if that happens, but just any thoughts here under 24 hours from the trade deadline?
I'm not expecting much. One, if not both those receivers to either move or be released shortly after. If they make a move, it's going to be bottom of the roster, depth, defensive line, maybe an offensive lineman, maybe I don't know, maybe a cornerback. I'm not expecting a big splash. I'm not expecting to do much. I think Drake Maye said on the radio today that like the trade deadlines are always overblown.
It's not baseball.
That's right. I'd love for them to make the Montez Sweat trade. I don't think it's there. I kind of said it before, like Baron Browning was a guy that made sense to me. He just got traded. Chase Young, I'd still make a call on. That's about as far as I'd go if I'm them at this point. I think they move, one or two smaller pieces, maybe add one, but I think it's going to be relatively quiet day tomorrow for the trade deadline. So I don't know, maybe there's something else people can focus on going on tomorrow.
No, I don't think there's much.
No,
Trade
uneventful
deadline.
day.
Oh, Maction's tomorrow, right? Doesn't
There's
Tuesday
Maction tomorrow. We got the Gold
Tuesday
Glove
Maction's
winners
not-
yesterday. Maybe that has a couple days hold, that story.
Of course,
So
they dropped that on a rant. Of course, they dropped Gold Glove winners on
Sunday
like
night at
a
8:00. Major
Sunday.
League Baseball, finger on the pulse as always.
Killing it as always. But yeah, I would expect one of those receivers either trade, release, and pretty quiet beyond that. I would love if that Montez Sweat deal is out there, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be. You mentioned Chase Young. I don't know if New Orleans is going to blow it up completely. Like Carl Granderson on the other edge is a guy I would love if they could pry him away. He's under contract too, but I just don't know again if that move is going to be out there. So probably a relatively quiet deadline. But if something does happen, we will be back to break it down. I believe crossover episode with Taylor and Mike on Wednesday.
Probably later in the day on Wednesday.
So maybe if there is a trade, we'll talk about that. Surely we'll get into Drake Maye, everything that's going on. I believe maybe even some midseason awards now that we're past the midseason point. So make sure you tune into that. We'll come back and give you an exact time on Twitter, Patriots CLNS. And then, of course, subscribe to Patriots Press Pass here on YouTube. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com to read his Patriots coverage up there. You can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots coverage online there as well. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in with us tonight, and we will see you guys later this week.